horror.
I was
not fans of horrors, but horror fans.
I was just telling someone over there that I watched Poltergeist when I was like 9, and it fucked me up. And I thought the tree outside my window was gonna eat me, and it was my mom was like, Tyler, you have too active an imagination. You can't handle horror movies, and that became my narrative until I was 22, and my girlfriend at the time, who ended up being my wife, who's now my ex-wife. It's a common story, I think. She was like, "You never watched Halloween or The Exorcist or Rosemary's Baby?" And I was like, I can't handle horror movies. My mom says. And then she was like, "Fuck that." And she made me watch them. I was like, "Oh my God, I love horror. I love it." And then I couldn't get enough. And then she became a horror whim, and then I had nobody to watch horror movies with. And then I met you guys.
Were you guys fans of horror growing up? Do you have a favorite horror movie?
Yes, I certainly watched them. The first ones I remember, I remember on Elm Street, that shit, you know what I mean? The Shining. Love The Shining back in the day, obviously. But I wasn't a rabid fan.
No.
Okay.
No, I watched a few, and I got more into it when I got this part of Freddy vs. Jason. I kind of explored, watching some of the Nightmare on Elm Streets and the other one, and I got more into it. But I've always liked the more psychological stuff. So I really like the movie In the Mouth of Madness. I thought that was interesting. All the stuff that's kind of where the terror is coming from inside your own imagination. That stuff appeals to me. More than
slashers.
My favorite one of those is Nightmare on Elm Street 4, I think. No, wait, Dream Warriors is 3.
3.
Right?
Yeah.
Dream Warriors.
The
Puppets.
slasher, oh my God, dude, that just stuck with me forever. Even the feeling of it, it's so visceral. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that to that. Or the veins.
Heavy on the practical effects, which makes it super fun to watch.
Is that the one where the motorcycle Freddy turns into the motorcycle the guy's riding?
No, that's 5.
That's 5. That is the worst / best / worst again. Secrets of the best horror movie ever.
Let's open it up to the audience if you have any questions before I ask any more. Don't make me pick on you, Keith.
Okay, yeah. So, loved you in Freddy vs. Jason. If my daughter was here, she'd be
So, are you talking to me?
crazy right now. But no, my question is going to be for the guys from Tucker and Dale.
Oh,
all right. So, but I want to give you. There you go.
You can go ahead.
They knew what they were doing, putting 2 mics up
I want to
here.
give you a quick scenario. Let's say you get a green light on Tucker and Dale versus Evil 2, right?
Oh.
And just say, for instance, you get a green light on it. Now here's a scenario. So Dale gets the girl at the end, right?
Yeah,
Kills them alive
yeah.
at the end, right? So let's say you and the girl, you have twins, right? Tucker and
Is this a pitch?
Hey,
Is it a question or are you pitching me
maybe. No,
the sequel?
it's turning into a question. Trust me, I promise. Right? You go out for the night. Tucker's babysitting the twins, right? One of them has diaper rash, so he's pouring Pabst Blue Ribbon on it, right? Because that fixes
Sure,
everything.
it's a cure-all, yeah. As we all know.
He goes downstairs.
The high
A
fructose
couple hours
corn
later, have you checked the children? He gets a call or whatever. And then just fast forward to the end. Maybe Tucker gets the girl at the end of this one, right? So what would you add, take away from, or completely replace? If you had any say-so in the think tank, how would Tucker and Dale vs. Evil 2 go for you?
Well, you mean after considering what your sequel looked like? What would I take away from that?
That's just my.
Yeah.
Do you have one?
Well, we've actually written a couple of them. Alan and me and Eli. Yeah. So we have the sequel for sure, but I can't tell you.
No insight on that.
No,
Okay.
but it definitely has to do with.
Would Katrina be involved? Can we ask you that?
Yeah, I think the idea would be that the main players, including Chad, would be involved in one way, shape, or form. But it's definitely it's not what you would expect. I will tell you this though: the joke on set was Tucker and Dale go to Yale, and that's sort of what we ran with. So, and it's obviously quite a bit in the future. I can't tell you much else about it except for there's a lot of college kids at Yale.
So is it something that you think is going to be developed, and we're going to see this?
So, I can't. It's such a funny thing. It's not for lack of trying. The rights to the intellectual property have been smothered and hoarded by one of our producers for 15 years now. We just won't let go of them. but he won't do anything about it either, which is really frustrating. And every possibility we brought to them, he's just squashed and said, that's not what I want to do. And then we developed a series. We developed wrap it up. We developed a series and sold it to TBS, like an anthology series, where each season was like Tucker and Dale versus, you know, Hills Have Eyes, Tucker and Dale, Tucker and Dale versus Aliens. Like, we did the whole thing. And we sold it, and we had a massive contract on the table, and then TBS went bankrupt. So, like, you know, we've tried, but the most recent development is that Eli Craig, writer-director, he has a movie coming out called Clown in a Cornfield, which is like really doing well. Went to South by and went to Con. No, I'm just kidding. Went to South by. It's had a really like warm response. And the producer of that film, who's a big producer, heard Eli's story about his frustration with where the rights are, and he just said, "Oh, that's ridiculous. Let's go get those rights." So we have a big producer and Eli going to get the rights back from Deep Run. And that's where we're at, and we got an official email saying like that's the plan this year. So all I know is we're planning on getting rights back, and then hopefully we can do what everyone has been asking us to do for 15 years almost.
People want it for sure. So on Tucker and Dale versus Evil, you always read about how the directors try to get the cast to build relationships, and they sometimes keep certain cast members separate from that. Did any of that happen? Because it was such a large ensemble, especially for the young adult.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us were like buds before the shoot. We all kind of knew each other. So there wasn't.
Did you guys know each
Yeah,
other?
we knew each other.
Yeah, me and Jesse knew each other for a long time, but I didn't know anybody else.
You didn't?
No, I didn't know Brandon at the time.
I was roommates with Brandon at the time. We taped it together on both of them.
I knew of him as a Vancouverite, but like I hadn't been in Vancouver for a long time at that point. Oh no, I was shooting Reaper. We just finished season 2, so anyway, it doesn't matter. I met Alan like 5 days before we started shooting, because before Alan, it was Jason Sudeikis was going to be Tucker, because we had done a good old-fashioned orgy together, and I brought him to Eli, and Eli and him hit it off, and Jason agreed to do it, and then like 2 weeks before we started shooting, Jason fucked up, which was like not a cool move, but all is forgiven. We ended up with the right guy, obviously. I can't even imagine it with Jason, honestly. But anyway, so then we went and shot it, and like me and Jesse were buddies, so we found time to hang out a few times. But like we were in 2 separate movies.
Yeah, it was 2 more.
Me and Alan were doing, and Katrina were doing our movie in the cabin, and then these guys were killing themselves all over the place. And so we got to see them in like spurts. Not very much intended, but yeah, we found some time to like party and stuff. But like we really were like making 2 separate movies that only come together at the end. So. Plus, we only shot for 18 days. You don't know that. It was like a whirlwind shoot.
Wow.
Opening up back to the audience if you have anything. If not, I'll continue. Any questions?
Nothing's off limits.
What favorite underwear? I mean, Kyle, what do you think makes a good director?
I'm gonna answer the question about underwear.
Okay.
Sax. I love Sax underwear.
Ambassador
Ballpark pouch. Supports my troops. And you heard it here first. What was your actual question?
What do you think makes a good director?
That's a great question. I think it's just like a good partner. It's communication. It's starting to get way too deep there for a second. But I think it's all communication. I think as an actor, I think a lot of things make a good director, but as an actor, what I'm looking for is communication. I want somebody who's going to communicate concisely, give you just kind of what you need from them. I've worked with directors who they're more. It feels like they're more about the how everything looks, and they might be brilliant with that, but ultimately, the main things that are at your disposal as a director are your actors, I think. And if you can't communicate with them, then I think you're missing out. I would any aspiring directors in the crowd or anything like that, I would highly recommend go take an acting class. Just see how the language that actors are using can inform the way that you communicate with them. because to be able to, you know, it's a slightly different language. So just be able to say, hey, your motivation for this or that, or you know, I think that makes it.
That's an excellent answer, excellent advice. There are a lot of filmmakers, indie filmmakers at the convention, so hopefully they've heard that.
Can I just add one other thing?
Please.
Our brother Cam is a director. I've done 2 films with Cam, and I think like to further Kyle's point of like having like a shorthand with your actors, like if you work with someone that you trust implicitly both ways, like that can bring so much to a project. But like it's like about saying a lot of stuff, understanding like a tacit agreement that you both understand. So like working with people that you trust, you know, like.
I had a director on this. I was doing a movie about some Canadian skiers, and his name was Randy. I can't remember his last name. He was the director of that, and he came up to me one time in between. Was it? Yeah. Okay. And he came up to me in between takes one time, and he just went like this. He went. And I completely fucking understood what he meant. Absolutely. 100%. He just, and I was like, I totally know what you mean. And we knocked it out of the park. Like, so it's hilarious.
I often read about comedic actors in films that sometimes the director will let you do a take where it's just strictly stick to the dialogue, and sometimes it's improv. Did you guys get to do that on Tucker and Dale? Have you gotten to do that a lot? Did you like that?
I mean, I don't take it anymore. I stuck with the script is so good. Yeah. Had to too much, you know.
That's true. The script was really good, but I am an improv-based actor. Pretty much how I feel by like kind of polishing turds, I think they call it, a turd polisher. But then you get a movie that isn't a turd or a project that isn't a turd. But my instinct is always to find more. And Alan is a heavily improv-based actor as well. And like I said, it was mostly me and Alan for a lot of the movie, and we just like couldn't stop, you know. So a lot of that movie is Alan and I just. And Eli being like, you guys get it, man, like just go. If there was anything that you didn't want, because Eli's a brilliant director and writer, he was really smart about it. He wouldn't like make us feel bad, but he would definitely gently be like, just, you know, we'd be like, got it. But he, again, really trusted what we were doing. If the crew was laughing, you know, good indication that we're doing something right. But yeah, we improv a lot in that movie, which is funny. I mean, a totally different experience, you know. But like, there were a lot of scenes with me and Alan where Eli was just like, "Now just do one for you." And then a lot of the time, a lot of the bits that you feel in the movie that couldn't have been written, you know, they're just like things that happen organically. But that doesn't always work either. I also respect when people really, you know, you can come in and just stick to the script. Like, it's a skill set that I don't totally have. I'm not great at like knowing exactly what the lines are.
And just for me, I've been in kind of a funny position. I haven't done a lot of comedies. What I have done a lot is be the comedic relief in a lot of like sci-fi and other shit like that. So very often what will happen is there'll be like sometimes a spiel on set where it's like we want everyone sticking to the lines, this is sci-fi, it's important, and then they'll be like, and then on the side of it, except for you can kind of do your thing. So it's always a little weird when you're improvising and other people are sticking with the script because you're just kind of making shit up or whatever, but that's where I've been at, where they kind of encourage me to improv.
On Reaper, and this is a little bit of a brag, that pilot tested through the roof for CW, and then the character Sock. Does everyone know Reaper here? Does everyone know the show Reaper? Anyway, it was a show that I did on the CW, and my character Sock tested higher than any character I ever tested in the history of the CW. Which was crazy. I found out I don't know why they told me, other than to make me like really get a big head. And we came back to shoot the series, and everyone was like, "You just like you go, man." And everyone else on the cast was like, "All right, we get to like improv a bunch." And then they sent a memo to everybody on the cast saying, "You guys don't get to do that. Only Tyler does." It was so uncomfortable, and it really created this wedge. And like, so like my co-stars were like, "Great, have fun, Tyler," and I was like, "I will."
In that situation though, so if you are in a scene with a partner and you're improvising and they're, what do? Do they?
Well, Kyle can attest to this too, I'm sure. And maybe you've been in some people who are improv. It's like people who aren't good at improv and don't really want to are pretty happy to do it. You know what I mean? Like they're okay with you making a scene better by like zhuzhing it up or whatever. But also a good improv, you're never there to like outshine or throw anybody under the bus. You're just there to like service the humor.
And you usually when you're improvising like that, you're bringing it back to kind of the through line of the scene, right? So it's not like you're taking the scene and like it's a whole different thing, and they can't respond the way that they have in the script. You're usually kind of filling it in and then kind of bringing it back through.
So they can go right back into it.
And also like there are different ways to like improv and loosen up a scene. It doesn't always mean that the scene partner needs to like go on a rant, but it does open up a looseness to the scene that I think can be really like researched without them being too improvisation.
Yeah, most of this has been improv actually.
We scripted some of it, but a lot of this is off the cuff.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Question for Tyler.
Hey, Paul.
How are you? What do you have any advice
No
for
chaps today?
leather shirt?
No riding chaps?
No, riding the bike. Do you have any advice for new and upcoming people who want to direct movies or write movies like myself?
Yeah, right. You were mentioning that you write quite a bit, right? You've got a
I've
few
written
features.
three,
Yeah. That's interesting because you're in a position that I think a lot of people are finding themselves in right now who are established. I was talking with Jesse about that this morning. Kyle and I talked. Like, it's a weird time in the industry where actors who have just been like actors for hire, that's not enough anymore, right? Like you need to be writing and creating new material, and you need to be like following every creative instinct and avenue you can. So we're all kind of doing that now. It doesn't need to just be this thing where you're like an outsider trying to like get creative and put a script into the world. Like I think now's the time. The studios are dropping the ball and shitting the bed all over the place, making junk that everybody's starting to like kind of resent. And the indie DIY sort of scene, like the 70s, like my favorite boom of films ever was the 70s, like The Conversation, The French Connection, like China Syndrome, like the list goes on. Anything Gene Hackman was in, you know, like we forget that Spielberg was an indie zealot, you know what I mean? Like George Lucas, those guys were indie filmmakers that we had never seen before, like to a degree that we'd never seen, making films that changed the entire landscape of filmmaking. That's happening again right now. But I truly believe that. Like watching that Laura sweep the Academy Awards was like, that movie was made for like $1.5 million. You know what I mean? So I think if you're ever going to take a shot at it, now is the time. And I think the more people that do and actually step forward and say, hey, I actually have scripts written, and you start trying to make it, like I think we're going to start seeing way more good content. I think it just takes encouragement from this industry that has been largely exclusive, right? It's going to be more inclusive.
Thanks.
Hopefully. I'm just saying, go for it, man.
You can do it. Go ahead, Keith.
I want to tag on to the improv question. Tucker and Dale, the whole Pabst Blue Ribbon thing that just heals any and all wounds and all that. Was that in the script, or did you come up with that?
No, that was Alan. That was Alan. The Pabst Ribbon was in the script, but you know, something really fucking funny is Pabst. We had to get clearance from Pabst, and they were like, "Yeah, great. We'll send you a 6-pack." That's it. So we only had 6 packs that we were able to actually open on camera. The rest of them were like just cans of water that we'd already opened and filled with water again, and they added the sound effect later. But we did. Pabst was like, "Here you go, 6 beers for you. Put us in your movie." That was all they gave us. So anyway. That was one of the ones that we got. That was real Pabst, yeah. I think the only other time we drank a real Pabst was when Alan was in the hospital, and the first ones we opened in the truck. And we were like, hey, man. And then I think we saved the other 2 just in case, and then probably drank them all. Right? But the pouring it on the face and using it as a cure-all, that was Alan because he's an El Paso, Texas boy. He's like, we can't actually do this shit. So, yeah.
There should be a
Get a
napkin
fishing
in every
hook in
first
your hand
aid
and pour some beer on it, man.
You have a question, Keith? What was it like being on set with Robert Englund?
That's me. It was fantastic. I had the privilege of actually getting to discuss his process with him because I was able to, or my character was possessed by Freddy for a brief period of time. So I got to kind of get into his internal process of, and that was fascinating. I mean, I was only 18 when I did it, so, I hadn't thought about a lot of this stuff. And you just think, okay, this guy just does this shit and he's trying to be scary. That's his MO, is be scary. But he really has a whole process behind it. He says that he based a lot of it on kind of gunslingers, westerns. So everything is very 3/4 to the camera. You're never dead on. Dead on is not scary. 3/4 is scary. You have a heavy right hand because it's got the gun. That's the gunslinger part. But for him, it's the metal hand, right? So it's all 3/4 and down with the heavy hand. And yeah, it was really cool to, as an actor, to be able to experience that. So I wasn't on set a ton with Robert. A lot of their stuff was a little bit later on, and the stuff with the kids was kind of us just running around through, mental institutions and schools and stuff like that, which was actually the same set. If you're ever wondering, mental institutions and high schools, same general, yeah, but it was an absolute delight to see somebody who had really perfected their craft and had thought it through so clearly with that methodology. It was cool. Thanks for the question.
Any other questions?
Also, just to translate, process is Canadian for process.
I wanted to comment on that. It was very
Is
true.
it pasta or pasta? What was it?
Pasta. I know all y'all were thinking it when he said process. I'm like, oh, he means process. I know. Yeah.
One more for Tyler. I know you do a lot of horror slasher movies. Would you ever do a mobster movie? Like,
Well, I don't do a lot of horror movies, yeah, but like I would do a monster movie. Yeah,
like Casino, Goodfellas?
Yeah, I would love it. I would love it. I actually recently have 2 movies coming out where I play like something that no one has ever seen me play, which is actually like kind of like straight up bad guy.
De Niro, Al Pacino.
Well, one of them, do you guys know who Gavin McGinnis is? With Friend of the Proud Boys, and like so basically I'm playing him in this movie about Vice magazine, the earlier days of Vice, and running Vice magazine, and going on this expedition to Kazakhstan. It's a crazy movie I made in Sweden.
When does that come out?
Well, we're premiering at TIFF, I think, this September. Yeah, we got in last year, the directors, they're these Swedish directors, and they said, no, we're not ready yet. So they submitted, we got accepted, they said, no, we'll come back again next year in Toronto. It was like, we'll wait till next year, which is kind of unheard of. But, so we're hopefully premiering at TIFF in September, and then I just finished one with Zach Cherry from Severance, you know, Dylan from Severance, and Maria Bakalova from the Trump movie, The Apprentice, and from like, yeah, she's great. And I'm literally, I'm like the bad guy. I like murder and drive over people with my truck and slash their faces with box cutters. It's crazy. But it's a comedy. But it's been something I've been flexing a little bit as I've been sort of getting a little older and trying to change what I bring to acting. Is like I can have some girls, some gravitas, man. So yeah, maybe a mobster movie would be cool. I don't know.
He'll probably see you after this. What do people most ask you guys to write when you sign autographs? Do they have different quotes that they like y'all to put down?
Huck it, chuck it, football. That's what I get all the time. Zach and Mary Megaphone.
Fuck off, hillbilly is a big one for me.
Say that again.
Fuck off, hillbilly.
Are you talking to that guy? That was rude.
Dude, that goalie was pissed about something.
From Tucker and Dale, I usually get, I never thought I'd say this one, but I'm not hung like a bear. Which is like a lot to write on a horror poster. It's also kind of...
That better be an 11 by 14 for that. Do we have any more questions? We have to let them go back to their tables so y'all can go get autographs.
Jesse, you were such an amazing villain in Tucker and Dale. So believable. And obviously you had to have enjoyed playing that part. Do you like being a villain more than a good guy, or?
Yeah, for sure. Playing the bad guys is way more fun. It's way more fun. You just get to kind of like really maniac, you know. When you're a good guy, it's just
Anyone can be a good guy.
anyone can be a good guy. Yeah. Well, you want to have a half-heart face licking someone all along.
Cool.
You were a great bad guy, and that makeup was really cool. We liked that part, and they left it so open for a part 2. That's why it's so crazy. Nothing's, but we're waiting and our fingers.
I just have one question for Scara.
Yes.
Just help us settle something. I say that it's probably Sarah. He thinks that it's short for mascara.
Your name is Mascara.
It's mascara, actually.
I knew it. That's a beautiful name.
It might be Sarah.
Maybe she's born with it.
It might be Sarah, but I do like masks. That's fun. I might use that. Thank you so much, guys. One more time for Kyle.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming over here.
Yes.